Hello everybody, this is Gregory with 5-Minute Catholic Apologetics, where 5 minutes of your time may get you to the divine. Today we're going to talk about the Third Ecumenical Council, the Council of Ephesus in 431 AD. Now before we begin, let's start with a prayer. Nomine Patris et Filii et Spiritui Sancti. Amen. Gloria Patri et Filii et Spiritui Sancto, sic ut erat in principio et nunc et semper et saecula saeculorum. Amen. All right, definitely recommend you watch the two first videos we did on the First and Second Ecumenical Councils out of Nicaea and Constantinople number 1. I also recommend you check out the video we did on the two-part series on the four Marian dogmas. So what's the backdrop? 431, we're still in the Roman Empire, albeit dying off. Officially, it dies off in 476. And all you have at that point is the eastern part of the Roman Empire, which is the Byzantine Empire, which lasted until 1453. So Catholicism is the official religion that was promulgated by Theodosius I back at 380 AD. And so paganism is being rooted out. But we still have heresies. And if you look at the first 3 centuries of the church, we had a lot of heresies that were dealt with by some of the greatest champions of apologetics, Irenaeus, Athanasius with Arianism, and so forth. So our big champion this time around is Cyril of Alexandria, and he's going to be dealing with Nestorianism. But before we get there, the emperor at this point is Theodosius II, and the pope at this time is Celestine I. Now, the backdrop is this. Cyril of Alexandria is the champion of orthodoxy. Now, what I mean by orthodoxy, I don't mean Russian or Greek orthodoxy. I just mean the standard homogeneous teaching that was passed from the apostles to the early church fathers and so forth. So he is preaching orthodoxy. So Nestorius is the current bishop of Constantinople, which is the capital, so that position wields a lot of power, and he's preaching something that is heretical, and he is preaching that Christ did not have the hypostatic union. So what Nestorius is saying is that Christ had two separate persons, yet possessing both a human and a divine nature, but that he was not what we would perceive the hypostatic union. Truly God, truly man. So Cyril wrote a letter to Celestine and said, hey, this guy's teaching heresy. You got to do something about it. Celestine's like, all right, Nestorius, you have 10 days to recant or we're going to excommunicate you. This goes back to the Pauline epistles. We talked about this, how excommunication was commonly used as a way to admonish the sinner to have him come back. So he's like, you got 10 days. Nestorius is like, nah, Theodosius II, my boy, he supports me. Nah, sorry, not going to recant. You're wrong, Pope. The Pope's like, all right, let's have a council. Now, so Nestorius was actually the one who wanted a council because he thought that the people of Constantinople and in general, most of the bishops were going to support his heretical teaching. He didn't plan this well. So Theodosius II is like, all right, that's fine. You have my approval to have a council. So they decided to meet in Ephesus. And the reason they picked Ephesus is because, of course, Ephesus is one of the founding Christian communities, letter to the Ephesians. This is historically where John lived with the Virgin Mary until Mary was assumed. And so since Nestorius was talking about how Mary can be called the Christokobos instead of the Theotokos, so Christotokos, I should say, it's hard to say. Christ bearer, but she can't be called the God bearer. They're like, well, let's have this council in a city that's synonymous with Mary. So we had 250 bishops appear, which is more than appeared at Nicaea and Constantinople number 1. And to Nestorius' shock, the council condemned Nestorianism and the idea that Christ was not a hypostatic union. And so the Pope sent legates, people over there, because he wasn't going to make that long journey. And they really wanted St. Augustine to go there, but St. Augustine was dead by this point. He couldn't make it. And so the Pope was represented. And the Pope told his legates, he's like, you're not going to discuss, you're just passing judgment because I am the Pope, right? I have the keys of the kingdom. So you start seeing, and we talked about this in Constantinople 1, this kind of friction between the East and the West, between Constantinople and its bishop, and with the Pope. And now you start seeing here, and with future councils for sure, the true primacy of Rome. Whereas maybe in Nicaea and Constantinople 1, I wouldn't say the Pope was timid. He knew his prerogative. But now you start saying, I am the Pope, this is the truth, and so forth. But still, at this time, the emperor had a lot of sway. But at the council, the big takeaway is this. Long story short, big takeaway is this. Nestorius was denounced as a heretic and excommunicated. All of his supporters were also deemed heretical. The people in Ephesus and Constantinople were glad that he was kicked out, because as Bishop of Constantinople, he was putting in people that were supporting this heresy. So they were happy. But to his surprise, Nestorius' surprise, the council is like, yeah, we're not going to believe this. So Mary is the Theotokos. Mary is the God bearer. She bore true God, true man. And we don't have time to really flesh it out. But that's where you get the idea of Mary being the mother of God. It emanates infallibly from this council, this ecumenical council. Remember, ecumenical means worldwide. So this is the big takeaway. Okay, so when you think of Council of Ephesus, think of Marian dogma, God bearer, Mary is. And so Cyril of Alexandria, who kind of led the council, was the champion of orthodoxy, and everyone was pretty happy. Also, the Nicene Creed, which was written about 100 years earlier, was officially approved. We talk about how at the Constantinople I Council, how the second part of the creed was added, but they reaffirmed the Nicene Creed. So that's the other big takeaway is that. So that's essentially the Council of Ephesus. It was the Third Ecumenical Council. And I also recommend that between Constantinople I and Ephesus, there were a couple of councils, not ecumenical, that determined Bible canonicity, which books were going to be in the Bible. So I'll put the banners in there so you can go check those out on the Council of Rome, the Council of Carthage, and so forth. Guys, I hope this helps. I know it wasn't the most thorough, but I try to do the best that I can. Please hit the notification, subscribe, and share buttons. Share with like-minded people. Until next time, take care, God bless, and pray.